Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney, and today we are discussing the art of speaking your truth. Speaking your truth sounds so vague, in my opinion, because what does it actually mean to speak your truth? What truth? And is it really something that all of us are meant to do? My personal take on speaking your truth is about expressing how you feel and expressing your experiences without filtering them and without sugarcoating them so that they're more digestible for the people around us. And even more so, I believe that speaking your truth is about being honest with how you feel and how you think internally and expressing that with the world. I don't think it should matter who it is you're speaking to. I think the ultimate goal is to be able to be consistent with ourselves and how we express ourselves with strangers and with people that we know very well and we love very much. Obviously, when we don't know someone, we're not going to be exactly the same as we are when we are around someone that we've known for years. But we shouldn't feel the need to filter ourselves in terms of the things that we say and what we consider to be appropriate to share and inappropriate to share. Obviously, there's exceptions to this rule. If we are speaking negatively and we are using our voice to add negativity to the world, that's different and that's not truth, in my opinion. That's a distortion of our negative feelings. But this episode is mainly focusing on everything else. It doesn't have to be positive per se, but it has to be at least neutral, and it has to be something that has a purpose and that has intention behind it. I think there are two types of people in this world. There are those that love to talk, and honestly, if you give them the space and the freedom to do so, they will talk about anything and everything without really thinking it through before speaking. I fall into that category. And then there's those people that think very carefully before they speak. They're very aware of what they choose to share with the world before they start expressing themselves. And I admire people like that. I always have, because I feel like sometimes my mind and my mouth run a mile a minute and they tend to have a mind of its own and speak before I've ever processed what it is I was trying to say. Luckily, my message gets across well, for the most part, and when it doesn't, I give myself grace and I've learned to be flexible with myself. But I will say that there are pros and cons to both types of people. The pros for people that are similar to me in the way that speaking their truth comes easily to them. They have to work on taking a moment to really think about their intentions behind the words that they share with people. And the ones that think before they speak, the pros of being in that category is that you are naturally very intentional before you share how you feel and what's on your mind. Something to work on, though, if you are a part of this category, is to go easier on yourself. You don't always have to be restrictive with what you share. You don't always have to think about how other people are going to receive your message before you say it, and you don't have to worry if people even care about what you have to say. Now, all of that is easier said than done, and that's why we're going to talk about this topic more in depth. I hope by the end of this episode, regardless of what category you fall into, you feel more confident in your self-expression. Because you don't have to be a celebrity, you don't have to be someone with an incredible life story to have something meaningful to share with the world. Many times, when we look at our own life, we don't think it's significant. We don't think it's interesting because it's all we've known. And so it doesn't seem unique to us. But the truth is, everyone's life story is very inspiring to someone else. Whether we have proof of that or not, it's just a fact. Anytime we've gone through a challenge or a struggle in life, or we overcame some sort of difficulty in the past, that's inspiring, and that can help many other people navigate their own lives. Perhaps we're someone that hasn't really looked at life from that perspective yet, and perhaps we haven't really noticed all the lessons we were taught through life. But now we're older, and now we do realize all these things. It's beautiful to know that just by us sharing our experiences and how we've grown and how we've become better individuals, we can help the future generation. It's not always about helping people our own age or helping inspire the collective. Many times we can share something, and 10 years down the line, it'll end up helping someone that's eventually going to go through it. And on top of that, the most beautiful part about speaking your truth is that even if we don't end up helping anyone else through sharing our experiences, we help ourselves, because without realizing it, we keep parts of ourselves hidden from the world, yes, but also hidden from ourselves. We go through challenging experiences in life, but we never talk about it. And that's fine. Not everything has to be out in the open and has to be discussed, but it deserves to be out in the open and discussed with ourselves. And so, if you're not someone that journals, how else are you going to communicate with yourself your truth and how you feel about your life and how you feel about your experiences? We're going to get into 4 steps that I touched on my Instagram account. She is Artfully Woman, where I discuss a lot of the topics we talk about here on the podcast in a written format. So if you're interested, please join me over there. The 4 steps are as follows. 1. Embrace the divine gift of your voice. 2. Feel the healing of releasing what's within. 3. Allow your voice to evolve with you. And 4. Speak to connect, not to convince. This is a post that I created in October of 2024. Wow. And it was one of the first posts that I ever wrote on my Instagram account. Now, for some context and background on my little journey, I originally started off only creating written posts. And it was truly because I was nervous to start my podcast. I've never shared my life experiences on a public platform before. And I've always been someone that was very private about my life. Not because I was ashamed about my experiences, but because I always had this belief that when we share parts of ourselves, we make ourselves more open to getting hurt. We become more vulnerable and susceptible to pain. And I might feel this way because I'm a Scorpio. I do believe in astrology and horoscopes. I know it doesn't control the choices we make in life, but I do feel like it has an influence on our personality. And I think that's definitely a Scorpio trait. But I realized that by keeping all of my feelings and my thoughts locked up within myself, it felt like a lot to carry. And I was never sure why it felt like a lot to carry, because I've already come to terms with my life and the experiences that I've went through, and I was so grateful that I went through everything, even the hard moments in my life, because it taught me so much about myself and it brought me back to myself every single time. Just knowing that I've been through those things wasn't enough for me. I felt that I didn't go through my experiences just to keep them to myself. And whenever I would have deep conversations with the people that I love, I would realize that we all go through stressful and challenging situations in life. And every time we open up to someone and we share what we've been through and what we've learned, and we're vulnerable and we're being very human about our experiences, that's what creates that connection. That's what creates that deep love and respect for one another as people. It humanizes the people in our lives, and it humanizes the people in the world. So I decided to create this Instagram account and start writing about the topics I knew I would eventually want to discuss on my podcast. And I knew the momentum from taking action on writing would eventually fuel me into podcasting, and it did. I'm very grateful that I made it all the way to episode 24 or 25. I can't remember which one this is, but I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to discuss this topic coming from a place of experience, because when I first wrote this topic, I was just taking those initial steps into speaking my truth. And that was a beautiful point in my life because the feelings that I felt in that moment were fresh, and I really understood what it felt like to be uncertain about speaking your truth, but doing it anyways and trusting that I will be more than okay. I'm also very happy to now discuss this more in depth on the podcast because I have more experience in this area and I have more insight on this topic. So let's get into step 1. We have embrace the divine gift of your voice. The beautiful thing about the way the world works and the way that people work is that there's only a limited number of words that we can use within our vocabulary. And yet, we all find unique ways to express ourselves. I don't believe that that's a coincidence. I believe that the way that certain people put into words their experiences and their feelings is perfectly intentional so that people in the world can better understand themselves and better express themselves as well. Not always are we going to relate to the same people in life. There are so many motivational speakers that speak on similar topics, whether it's going broke and then they had to build themselves up through faith and determination and it worked for them. There's many speakers that talk about that, but not all of them click for every single one of us because of our own unique experiences in life. So when we share our feelings and when we share our opinions on things, it opens the door for connection with other people in the world that are like-minded to you. And on top of that, it gives other people this courage to really express themselves as well and to step outside of their own shell that they created for themselves. I feel like before I ever started speaking publicly, I was sort of in a little shell. I definitely spoke my truth and shared my thoughts and opinions, but it was only in a very safe space where I knew that it could be contained. It would only be the people that loved me dearly, my friends, my family. But to share your thoughts and feelings and opinions with a group of people that might not validate you and you've never spoken to before, it allows you to align the way that you feel internally with the way that you show up in the world. And that is an incredible feeling that cannot be replaced by anything. If you are someone that has had an itch to share something or just to comment on something that's going on within the world, make sure it's intentional, meaning you're saying it with the intentions of connecting with other people, to add to the world, to be a builder, so to speak, not a destroyer. You don't want to cause separation in the world and more hate and more divide. When you know you're coming from a good place and you have something that you would like to share, do it. And it's easier said than done, but I promise you, thinking yourself into doing something is never the answer. That's why the Nike slogan is called Just Do It. Because when you allow yourself to overanalyze and think deeply before taking action on something that you feel called to do, you feel passionate to do, you're only delaying your own divine gifts of being shared with the world. And since each and every one of us has a unique voice and unique wisdom to share with the world will just miss out on your genius if you keep it locked within your heart. Ultimately, it's a choice that each and every one of us has to make. It doesn't have to be a grand decision. You don't have to start your own podcast. You don't have to start writing paragraphs of your life experience, only if you feel called to. But if you see a post on social media and it's discussing a topic that you're passionate about, share your thoughts, feelings, and opinions, even if you're not sure people will agree with you. It will change your life. It sounds dramatic, but it's true. Step 2. Feel the healing of releasing what's within. I touched on this briefly before we went into the 4 steps, and I explained that for me personally, before I started writing and before I started podcasting, I really felt like I did a lot of my healing on my own already. I've come to terms with what I went through and how it made me feel and how I think about it. I took accountability for my role in situations, and I also just practiced acceptance over the things that I could not change, which was everything, because it was the past and it all already happened. And I didn't go through anything traumatic in an extreme way, but we all go through things in life. Whether it's big or small, it leaves an imprint on us, and it can have a lasting effect if we don't come to terms with it and clear it up. So once I did that, once I came to terms with my own baggage, so to speak, and started working on clearing it up, I still felt like I was carrying it. And I haven't really shared this with anyone, not even people close to me. But as I was pursuing my career in occupational therapy, which is my side job, I kept getting this idea in my head to start a podcast. Now, at that time, I was listening to podcasts often. Not every single day, but whenever I was tired of listening to music and I had a long commute to school or to work, I would just listen to an uplifting podcast. And I would enjoy them so much that I would think to myself, I feel like this is something that I can do as well. If all these people are sharing their experiences and what they've learned, and it's helping many other people in life, I can do the same thing. But then I let it go because I figured I'm not someone that enjoys being in the limelight. I don't like unnecessary attention on myself, and generally I'm a very private person. So I assumed that sharing my life experiences and even my feelings and my thoughts would be too much. So I just let it go. Throughout my school program, which was 3 years, the thought of starting a podcast kept resurfacing in my mind. And the funniest thing was, I didn't even want to do it. And it was as if the thought was getting louder and more persistent. And it was strange because I've heard of intrusive thoughts when it comes to negative thoughts, such as you're on a diet and there's chocolate cake and you get this intrusive thought to just eat the chocolate cake even though you know you're on a diet. But I've never really heard of getting an intrusive thought of doing something that could actually be beneficial and that could actually be life-changing in a way. Yes, we have these fleeting ideas and these moments of inspiration where we decide we're going to change something within our lives, whether we decide we want to change our hair or we're gonna go to the gym, and you know what I mean. But it was an idea that wasn't guaranteeing me any sort of immediate benefit. It was just telling me to start a podcast. And after the 4th time of me having that idea surface in my mind out of nowhere, I decided, you know what? I think this is a sign, and I think this is a message, because I'm not the one that's feeling impulsive to start this. It's almost as if I'm being called to do something. So when I finished school and I started studying for my boards exam, I decided I will start my Instagram account and I will do all the things I need to do to prepare to start a podcast. So that's what I did. I started my Instagram account. I bought a microphone. I came up with a name. I came up with an idea of the logo, and the most beautiful thing happened. The second I listened to that idea, that thought of starting a podcast, and I trusted it, even though I had no proof that it was coming from a powerful source. The details of starting the podcast started to fall into place very quickly. The idea of the logo came to me within a few hours. The title of the podcast came to me within a few hours. The same thing goes for my Instagram account name. And I got very lucky because I was on Canva looking for different layouts on how to create content that would briefly describe what my podcast would be about. And the first one that stood out to me ended up being the only layout that I use on my Instagram account. And at first I had a few ideas on things I wanted to discuss, but there were moments when I would get to the bottom of my list, but I would never run out. It was always divine timing, and more ideas would just flood into my head whenever I was running low. Fast forward to me in middle of creating my written content and starting my podcast officially, I realized that it wasn't moving enough internally for me to just discuss strategies on how to navigate life. That was originally what I thought I was going to do. But then, as I started to record my podcast, I realized that I want to speak about my experiences. I don't want to just tell people what I think they should do or what I think is a good idea without sharing what I went through and why I think the way I think and why I feel the way that I feel. And so, when I started doing that, it was very uncomfortable for me. I'll be very honest. And I haven't really listened to my first podcast episodes in a while, but I'm sure I was shy and I'm sure that I was a bit reserved and guarded. And I'm still proud of that version of me, but I noticed my own growth and my own healing with each episode that I created, because the more that I speak my truth and I express what's on my heart and on my mind, and I'm coming from a place of wanting to add to the world, I have felt a tremendous release of everything that ever weighed heavy on my heart. I believe there's a really popular book called The Body Keeps the Score, and I haven't read it, but I believe that it's about how even if we get out of situations that were difficult for us, and even if we overcome challenges in our life, the effects are still living in the body. And I think that's sort of what I was going through before I even started this podcast. And it wasn't until I started speaking that I started to feel my body physically relax. And I didn't even realize how much anxiety I had within myself until I put myself in a position where I had to speak about my experiences that I overcame already. So if you are someone that is focusing on your healing and growing, and you can call it whatever you want. I know healing journey gets used a lot and it just seems annoying sometimes. Just know that I believe speaking your truth about your experiences is a great way to release any of the pain you've ever experienced, whether it was small or big, and your body will thank you, your mind will thank you, and you will relax and you will feel more like yourself, and it'll be easier for you to fully express yourself, regardless of how that's taken by the world. You will truly get to a point where you'll realize that you're fully connected with yourself. The way that you feel internally and the way that you express yourself to the world is the same, and therefore you don't need validation from the world to feel confident within yourself and to feel content with yourself, because you have become very honest with yourself. Step 3, we have allow your voice to evolve with you. Now, this is something that I'm learning in real time. When I first started my podcast and I first started writing, I would go back and look at my first episodes and be shocked, number one, because I was so surprised that a younger version of me was able to think of the topics that I discussed and also be so brave to express herself when she had no experience doing that. But also, as I got more confident in expressing my truth and my opinions and my thoughts and feelings, I realized that my opinions have changed and my thoughts and feelings on life and my experiences have changed. And in the beginning, it was uncomfortable because I felt like both versions of myself couldn't exist at the same time because they were contradicting. But then I realized very quickly that no, the younger version of me that shared what she shared was necessary for whatever reason. It was necessary for me to grow into the version of who I am right now, but also it's necessary for whoever ends up stumbling upon that content, whoever ends up listening to those podcast episodes, and whoever ends up reading those posts. It was meant for them, and I'm not going to take that away just because I'm no longer in that place anymore. Maybe I'll change my mind in the future. I'm open to that, but as of right now, I don't see a reason to. With my written posts, I've noticed that when I decide to revisit a topic from almost 6 months ago, I'll realize my opinions have completely changed. Not that I disagree with the things that I've said, but I've matured, and It's almost as if my thought process and my emotions have evolved and they have come full circle, and I embrace it. I started to take my older topics and completely rewrite them. It's actually a beautiful experience for me because I see my growth in real time. But the truth is, I only see my growth in real time because I decided to speak my truth and share my truth with the world. Had I decided not to listen to that inner voice and start my podcast and start writing, I would have never been able to pursue this path of self-discovery and self-expression. I realized that it's not enough to really do all this growth in our mind. We need an outlet for it because many times we think that we're growing and that we're learning new information, whether it's about ourselves, whether it's about our past, our experiences, our feelings. But if we don't do anything with it and it just stays in the mind, we're not changing. We're not growing. Yes, we can have new thoughts and new feelings on things, but if we don't take action on it and we don't do anything with these discoveries, then we're truly not evolving as an individual. We have the tools to evolve because we have the self-awareness. We have the ideas on what we should express and what we should do to change and step outside of our comfort zone. But if we're not actually going to do anything about it, we're staying stuck in the same place that we've always been. A tip for this step, because I know that it's not everyone's passion to start a podcast and to start sharing their whole life story on social media, journal. I will always mention journaling because it's really a game changer. I am sure every successful person on this planet journals, and I don't want you to do it just because successful people do it. I want you to do it so that you can really build that deep connection with yourself and you can actually track your own growth in real time. I used to do this thing where I would journal every day, which I do. I don't always have time to write every detail of my day out, but I like to summarize how I'm feeling, the challenges that I went through, the blessings that I experienced. And what I used to do at the end of my week is read over all my entries for that week. And the amount of times that I would read everything over at the end of the week and realize where I needed to take accountability for my own actions, where I needed to get out of my own way, and also where I needed to be proud of myself for how hard I was working. All of those things became obvious to me because I decided to take time to connect with myself every single day. And not only that, I decided to review how I showed up for myself. This definitely takes time out of each day, but honestly, we can all find 5 minutes every single day. So even on my busiest days, I will set a 5-minute timer and I will write as much as I possibly can for 5 minutes before I go to sleep. And usually because there's a timer and I know that once it goes off, I am done, my brain is pretty smart, and I believe all of our brains work this way. We will write the most important things down within those 5 minutes. And everything else, leave it alone. It's okay. And on other days where you have more time and you want to write more, do it. Then when you get to the weekend, allow yourself 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes to reread everything that you wrote. I personally journal on my phone. I think it makes it very convenient for me. I know that there is more power to writing things down on paper, so if that is something that you can do, I would definitely recommend that over writing on your phone. But I believe as long as you're taking time to express yourself and connect with yourself, that's all that matters. So if it's easier for you to type it on your phone, then do that. Another way that you can connect with yourself and express yourself is through recording voice memos. If you are someone that is just constantly on the go, you're driving a lot, record yourself talking about your day. Pretend you're vlogging, but you're only vlogging to yourself. Record a video of yourself if you have to, and look back at it at the end of the week, and you will be able to understand yourself better and get a better glimpse on who your true self really is. Step 4, speak to connect, not to convince. When I created this step, I was really speaking to myself more than anyone else. And that's because, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, I am someone that can really talk without filtering myself and without pausing before reflecting on what my intention is before I speak. Now, this is something that I have been working on and I still work on every single day. It doesn't come naturally to me, but it is something that I am serious about improving on. But what I have noticed about myself in the past, I would not always check myself to see if what I was sharing with other people was intentional. And I wasn't really checking to see if I was adding to conversations and if I was adding to people's lives rather than just spewing nonsense. And that can seem a bit harsh, especially if you are someone that doesn't speak up often. So I'm not going to say that this applies to everyone, but when we do share our thoughts, even if it's a comment on social media, the goal should always be connection. And that doesn't mean we need to be understood. That doesn't mean that we need people to agree with us. But it does mean that we're not speaking from a place of ego. We're not speaking from a place of needing that validation or telling people about themselves and telling people that they're wrong for how they think and how they feel and how they view life. It also makes your words more respectable. When you are someone that is not demanding to be agreed with, people actually take the time to pause and listen to you because they don't feel pressured and they don't feel like you're placing expectations on them. We don't need people to agree with us, to validate us, for our words to matter. We are the only ones that have to believe our words matter. We will never get that from other people. We might think we will, but it's not stable and it won't last long term. If for whatever reason we do feel like there is someone in our life we need to agree with us, otherwise X, Y, and Z, just know that you will always be dependent on them for validation. You will always be considering their thoughts and their feelings above your own. And that's honestly ridiculous because it's your life. You are doing a disservice to yourself by needing validation and needing people to agree with you in order for you to believe in what you have to say. We never want other people to be the reason why we never say what's on our mind, especially if it can help people and help ourselves. When we speak and we know our intentions are pure, they're coming from a loving place, they're coming from an intentional place to build and to grow as an individual and to help others, everything else becomes irrelevant. Everything else becomes not your problem and not your responsibility. People are allowed to interpret whatever we say in any way that they would like to, and they will, because people see things based on their own perception on life and their own life experiences. And we have to just let them. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode. I definitely loved making this episode. I love making every single episode, but this one especially is very close to my heart because it's all about speaking your truth. And that's what brought me here, recording this podcast and speaking to each and every one of you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me. It means the world to me. I hope you have an amazing week. I love you all. Until next time, bye for now.